You are about to watch a preview of a Sopography film, and if you would like to watch the full film and over 600 others, please head to www.sopography.co.uk and become a member. Well, that didn't take too long. Sun's been on the snag properly for an hour or so. We've had a bite. He's not very happy. It's definitely a carp, definitely a mirror. Just got to get him in, and the hard bit is done.
There's fish right beneath my feet. Two of them fish out the back there are massive. I reckon 45 pound at least.
The crazy fucking thing is that the other lakes officially are not fishing in the weekend.
That is our final morning carp. We'll call him the goodbye present. Bridger. Yo. High five. Right, stressing out now. Guy's come up to us. He's basically said you can't night fish on any of the lakes during the week except for the one over the road, which is at weekends. Was that a fish? God, that sounded like a carp. Big set of rings out there and all. These trips, these films, they're all about adventure. Sometimes it's nice to smell the roses along the way. That's what we've done here. I knew there was a chance for a big one, and here it is. This is what we came for. We are back in France, and I've been gagging to get back out here. It's been about a month since I was last here. We left yesterday at 12 o'clock English time, and we drove all day. We didn't get to France or to the lake we were gonna fish until nearly midnight, so a long old drive. And when we got there, much to our dismay, there were two cars in the area we wanted to fish in. Now, that might sound a little bit silly, but the lake is around about 150 acres. It's long, about 500 meters wide, and the wind was pushing down there. Looking on Google Maps, you could see where the shallower areas of the lake were. I've been there in the past. I fished another lake next door, and I did look at this lake, and looking at it, I feel like that's an area we wanted to fish, so the anglers were present, and with that in mind, we decided just to leave there straight away, which might seem crazy, you know, arriving at a lake almost midnight, and then just leaving because there were a couple of guys there. Well, over here, one angler often commands a lot of water, so with two guys there, we decided that that lake's probably a write-off. So we've driven somewhere else, about 2 hours further on. We arrived at about 1:30 in the morning, and we spent the night by the car. So we got the bed chairs out, slept by the motor, but now we are up. In my hand is my first coffee of the day, and here to my right is 150 acres of water. It's days only fishing on here. As you can see, it's just getting light, and our mission is to see a carp, because without seeing a carp, a lake of this size with days only is rather daunting. So signs of fish are going to be really, really important, which means I need to be facing that way, not this way. But this coffee is important too, so I'm going to get this down my neck. And we've been told there's lots of big fish in here, and if we do get lucky enough to get a bite, there's a good chance it will be a big carp. So fingers crossed we see one. It is the middle of March now, so since I was last in France, you know, times have changed, things have moved on a bit, and although it's always a little bit colder out here, we're ready to rumble. And hopefully the carp are too. Buzzing. We are seeing shows now. I said a little while ago that I thought I'd heard one. Turns out I did. Was that a fish? Maybe that sounded like a carp. Big set of rings out there and all. There ain't a fucking bird out there, is there? Around about 100 to 150 yards out in the lake, right in front of the motor, which is a touch, we've now seen 4 shows. The first one, I heard it. Obviously, I was looking the wrong way when it happened. The coot spooked that were over there. You know, it's like your eyes deceive you. You think, surely we ain't seen one already. We ain't been stood here that long. Big set of rings out in the lake, though. So we've stayed watching that area, and we've now seen another 3. Clear as day, out of water, bosh, carp signs. So we need to get rods in the water. There's one thing I've learnt over the years, making carp fishing videos, is it is a fuck about. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to get the stuff out of the car, get everything rigged up and ready, and that's the next time you're going to see us. But this is the perfect start to what could quite easily have been a bit of a grueler. Let's go. We needed to get the kit out the car and everything rigged up and ready to be towed out as quickly as possible, so that's exactly what we did. Rushing up and down the bank, get everything out, onto the deck, just the stuff we needed. No bivvies, no bed chairs, just the stuff we were going to use to fish with. Luckily, the fish we'd seen were right in front of the car, and because of that, it was only a short walk. So getting everything together, the rigs tied up and baited and whatnot, it didn't take too long. Probably sound like a bit of a broken record, but as I always have done coming over into Europe, I went in with the same tactics as all my other trips. So big leads, lead clip setups and squid goo wafters mounted to sort of 9-10 inches of 30-pound armour cord. Strong, reliable tackle, my favourite hook baits and a big lead. Before long, we were ready to start getting rods in the water. I had 2 rigs ready. Bridger hadn't done his at that point because he'd been messing around filming me, but I had 2 rods ready to go. And at this point, it was time to get in the boat, get out into the water, tow out into the lake and drop the rigs in the area that we'd seen the fish. Right, we're ready to get the first rod out. Now, what we've seen this morning is what I would class as classic spring activity. The fish often show right on first light, and often you'll see them just before, just after first light, and then it goes dead. And that's exactly what's happened here. I'm convinced we probably missed the show this morning. I reckon they were showing in the dark. They've showed a few times, like we said. That's probably a half an hour period. Since then, nothing. So, you know, miss that little window. You can turn up and look at this lake. It's a big expanse of water and feel completely lost, but we're not feeling lost. We're feeling good, and I'm about to get the first rod in the water. I reckon a lot of them were short. That first one was quite far out though, wasn't it? Right, we're going to put the first rod out. It's 22 foot deep. I've lined myself up with where I saw the first show. Everything else you saw was left of that. So I've lined my boat up as best I can from the bank to that area. We'll just drop this down into position. Oh, I've just busted this out there with sinking braid on. So straightening the line, normally you just straighten the line up, see where you're facing. Slightly concerned where I've come in on a bit of a bow, I'm not going to get a true direction on my line, which is not the end of the world, but it is a bit annoying. With the floating braid, obviously that doesn't happen. With one rod in position, it was now time to think about getting all the other rigs in place. And the idea was to spread our rods over the area in which we'd seen the shows. They'd shown over an area that was probably 100 yards wide. We'd seen 4 shows, they were quite spread, and that was good. You know, if we'd have seen them all in one spot, that would have made things a little bit more difficult in terms of where are we going to put all the rods that we've got. But because they were spread out over a larger area, it actually made it quite simple, and we decided to put them every 25 yards or so to cover the shows. So, you know, we had a rod pretty much everywhere we'd seen a fish, and then after that we were going to just spread them out a little bit wider as to further cover the area. Because we've got an echo sounder on the boat, we're able to see what the bottom was like, and it was pretty nondescript. Quite deep water, maybe not by European standards, 20 to 23 foot, that seemed about the average once you got past about 50 or 60 yards. And again, the bottom nondescript. All felt firm, maybe sand or hard mud, but no weed, no humps or raises, just very flat. It just seems like an open bowl, and because of that, picking the spots and getting the rigs in position was nice and simple. All we had to do was tow out in line with where we'd seen the fish, get out to the areas. You're guessing the range, so you're going out there in a boat, you're trying to gauge from the bank how far they are, and then you're going out there and then you're trying to gauge how far from the bank you are. So that's a bit of guesswork, you know, you've got to just weigh it up, stand there, stare at it, and just try to assess as best as you can how far out you need to go. And then when you get out into the lake, you need to sit in position, line yourself up with both banks, look back to the bank, and then decide if you've gone the right range. And although it is a bit of guesswork, you can't get it too wrong, you know, and we were there or thereabouts. So before long, we had 4 rods in position. My 2 went out first, then Bridger's 2, and after that we decided to chill a little bit. You know, we'd covered the area well, we'd covered where we'd seen the fish. That was the important bit, and we just thought, well, tell you what, we'll sit back and maybe see what else we see, because we still had 4 rods left to do. Because of the time of year, and because we're basically fishing for a bite, you know, you're seeing signs of activity, you're reacting to it, you don't need to go mad with the bait, or at least we didn't feel like we did anyway. So once out in the boat, once the rig was down on the bottom, a couple of handfuls of hempen tigers, and then maybe 5-6 handfuls of boilies. A little bit concentrated around the rig, and then a little spread of boilies, you know, just to try and draw fish in. Really simple stuff. It doesn't get much easier, it doesn't get much more simple than that, but during the spring, at this time of year, and when you're fishing in this style, it's a good way to go. After a bit of contemplation about where to put the rods, we decided that we'd put one either side of the 4 rods that are already out there to sort of further cover that area. Another rod a little bit further right than that, and then Bridger's remaining rod, that went down by the dam wall. So that one in a totally different area to where we'd seen the shows, and with 8 rods out at that point, we'd certainly covered the area that we'd seen the fish. We'd expanded on that a little bit more, just in case they drifted off from the disturbance of the boat and us going out there. And then one down on the dam wall, that's where the wind was blowing. You know, it's a big feature, that kind of thing, so well worth a rod. And the final thing to do was just mark the lines. So get a bit of a pole elastic, put it onto the tips, and all that means is if you get a bite, when you next tow the rod out, it just gives you a gauge. You're never gonna get it accurate like you would when standing from the bank clipping up and casting, but a bit of marker elastic just off the tip just enables you, when you do re-drop the rod, to kind of gauge how accurately you've got it in comparison to the previous drop. Got to be a bream or a tench. What the hell is that? Tench, bream. Well, it's a tench. Bridger, can you unhook that for me, please? I haven't got waders on. That's what friends are for, look. we'll call this the afternoon update on what is going on. And other than the tench that I had a little while ago, not a great deal to be honest, as you can probably tell by my quite relaxed looking stance, sunglasses, t-shirt. It's lovely and warm. The temperatures have done what they're supposed to do, and I'd guess it's, it is getting on for that sort of 17, 18 degrees. Certainly feels like it's sat here in the sun anyway, but on the fishing front, we haven't seen anything since this morning, but it's a bit of disturbance going out there in the boat. Although it is deep, you're still going over their heads with a boat, so we'll see. I am confident, there were fish here, it's a big lake, and if they were there this morning, I'm hoping they're still there, and if they are, I do think we've got a really good chance. It is, what's the time? It's 18 minutes past 3, so 20 past 3. We've got a good few hours of light left still. Maybe we'll see more fish on dark. I'm not sure, but it feels good. This is the sort of weather you want at this time of year. My only concern is the depth. And with this weather, the fish could be up off the bottom. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've just seen. And as I said at the start of this video, if you'd like to watch this film in its entirety, please head over to www.supography.co.uk and join today.